Okay, it's helpful at this stage to remind ourselves of some German reactions to the treaty and to compare it to the German treaty they exacted upon Russia, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. So this cartoon on this first slide is actually quite indicative. You can see Germany is depicted as an innocent maiden reclining, sleeping on her bed, defenseless, while the sinister vampire of Clemenceau is obviously sucking her blood. You can see he's a vampire. Got the back images out of the window. He's sinking his fangs into her innocent flesh and withdrawing, obviously, punitive damages. So that's one indication of how some Germans felt about the treaty. But it's important to compare the Treaty of Versailles, which was exacted upon Germany, with the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which the leadership was prepared to exact upon Russia. So let's have a look at the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk and compare it to the Treaty of Versailles. So in Brest-Litovsk, large swathes of Russia were taken from her. So the Ukraine, Finland, and the Baltic states, that's Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, were taken from Russia. A third of the entire population of Russia was removed by the treaty. 32% of agricultural land, again, nearly a third. More than half of Russian industries, which are principally located in the west, which was the area taken away by the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, and nearly 90% of Russian coal reserves. So clearly, Brest-Litovsk, a very harsh treaty indeed. Well, in Versailles, Germany lost all of her colonies. Germany did have some, not as large, in terms of land extent and number as the British and French, but Germany did have some colonies in East Asia and in Africa, and these were all taken away as mandates. Lost nearly half of its iron production, for some time at least, 16% of its coal production, 13% of its territory, and 12% of its population. So if you have a look at those figures, which in your judgment of the two treaties is harsher? And does that in any way invalidate German objections to the harshness of the Treaty of Versailles imposed upon them? Let's read this article that was published in the New York Times, an American newspaper, in July of 1919. This article describes the mood and some events in Germany, some reactions to the treaty in Germany. So let's read through it. The immediate effect of the signing was a blaze of indignation in the German press and depression among the people. In Berlin, an atmosphere of profound gloom settled on the city. Several newspapers appeared with black borders on their Versailles articles. In Berlin, on the 24th of June, a number of German officers and soldiers seized 15 flags which had been captured from the French in 1870 and publicly burned them. Serious mob violence was in evidence, especially in Berlin and Hamburg, throughout the week of the signing of the treaty. So, certainly, there's evidence of extremely emotional reactions in Germany towards the treaty. It was an absolute shock to the vast majority of the German people. They were not expecting a treaty this harsh. But why? After all, Germany had been defeated. Well, the German people were unprepared, largely because they'd been unprepared by their leaders. Both military and civilian had hidden the extent of the loss and also not explained to the German people the harsh mood of the Allies towards Germany. And the German government, the Weimar government, they had seen the mood of the Allies. They'd seen the desire for revenge, and they knew that they were probably going to get a harsh treaty. However, this was not communicated to the German people, who were therefore obviously shocked when they were confronted by the terms of the treaty itself. Let's have a look at some quotes here which do illustrate that the Germans did understand, the German leadership that was negotiating, or rather were present at the treaty conference, they did understand that they were going to get a harsh treaty. So let's listen to the words of Count Rantzau, who was a foreign minister. So this is a meeting between German delegates at Versailles. Let me make a few opening comments. Our enemies will give us the completed draft of the peace treaty with the words, "Take it or leave it." the draft treaty will look very different from Wilson's 14-point programme. I think our discussions should focus on these issues: territorial questions, reparations, colonies, disarmament, and war guilt. So there, Count Rantzau is under no illusion that they are going to get a very harsh treaty, basically given to them to sign with no negotiations, and he knows it's not going to resemble Wilson's 14 points. This is Otto Landsberg, Minister for Justice. The questions of guilt and reparations cannot be separated. The march into Belgium by our troops in August of 1914 resulted from an emergency, but was not self-defence. Emergencies do not take away our responsibility for the damages, so we should agree to making some payment, but this should be small. So here, Otto Landsberg, the German Minister for Justice, does actually acknowledge that Germany does bear a measure of guilt. He admits that the march into Belgium, although he frames it in the context of an emergency response to Russian mobilisation, but does admit that it was not self-defence. So he does agree that Germany has a measure of guilt and should pay reparations, although clearly he doesn't agree to very large reparations. So I hope that's been fairly helpful for you. So it gives you an overview of German reactions and perhaps some reasons why the German public was not prepared. So hopefully you understand, or you've made your judgment. I mean, how harsh was Versailles? Well, it was harsh, but so was Brest-Litovsk. So does the harshness of Brest-Litovsk in any way, in your judgment, invalidate German objections to the harshness of Versailles? The signatories, the German delegates, they knew it wouldn't resemble Wilson's 14 points, and they were prepared for a fairly harsh treaty, but they didn't let the German people know, who were therefore shocked. So I hope that's been useful, and good luck with the quiz.